shit.
As I said, welcome home.
Hey, this is Matt from GamesRadar, and I'm here with Dave Horton.
Hello.
And today we're going to review Gears of War 4. Now, Dave, you are a huge Gears of War fan. You were there at the beginning.
I was there at the very start. I got through, 2, 3, Judgment, whole lot. Yeah.
So you know what you're talking about.
I do.
So let's start with kind of a bit of a general question for a man that knows so much about Gears. What kind of Gears of War game is it? I mean, this is sort of a question I think you'll understand, but expand upon it for us.
Yeah, I mean, the series evolved and changed massively over the course of the first 4 games. You know, you got 1 and 2 of these really tight strategic, kind of tactical, kind of really tug of war kind of strategic fights. 3 then blew it up to this mad World War 3 type scenario where the battlefields were huge and the enemies and the weapons got a bit gimmicky and it kind of lost a bit that tightness. And then Judgment took it back smaller but put more of a score attack kind of arcadey feel to it as well. This is pulling it right back to Gears of War 1 and 2, which is really exciting for me.
That's
because
good
that
news.
was always a sweet spot for me. That was why Gears was exciting, you know. It was always a deceptively intelligent game in that Gears at its best is always a constant battle of risk and reward. It's how many seconds can I fire at this guy versus how many seconds damage can I possibly take in exposure? What's changing over there that might make me move in a minute? Do I want to move? How can I move if I have to? It's like playing a fighting game and a shooter in Tetris all at the same time.
A brilliant strategic mini game.
Yeah, it's like
a
puzzle game almost, where every solution is resolved with a massive bloody headshot, and this pulls it straight back to that again. It's like it's a 2-player co-op cap as well, which makes things tighter. The environments are generally smaller, and it just feels really proper again.
So it's throwing back to what it was originally.
Yeah.
I suppose the next question would have to be, what then does it do that's new, and how does it do it?
Yeah, see, this is the thing. I mean, the only thing I was worried about at first was how do we not make it just a retread? Because it is definitely a soft reboot, but it's how you still make it a new thing. And it's great because it really feels like the Coalition have sat back and looked at the entire series as a whole, and this is kind of a summation of the best of Gears so far. Like, they've looked at what worked in all 4 entries and put that in, taken out the stuff that didn't so much. But they've layered over a whole bunch of really nice, subtle variations and tonal shifts in the combat as well. So it does still feel new. It just feels like new in a more sensible way based on what they already know works, basically. So you've got the environmental design. Combat areas feel a lot more open, a lot more dynamic now, a lot more free-flowing. And partly that's just visual design. They feel a lot more real than the old corridors of boxes that they used to do. But at the same time, that doesn't dilute things in any way, because throughout these environments, every fight's still built out of a series of multi-stage, close to medium range battles, which kind of link and resonate with each other, but it still has this kind of layered, compartmentalized feel. So it just feels bigger and more welcoming, but at the same time, you're still doing the proper Gears of War thing with it. There's a new enemy that kicks in about halfway through, which can buff the hell out of everything else on the battlefield, so that immediately changes, as soon as that appears, the whole pace and set of priorities completely change. Like a battle that you had a handle on feels like a completely different thing, even though nothing's really changed. And crucially, there's 2 new weapons, which seem a bit gimmicky at first, but are actually brilliant. There's the Buzzkill and the Drop Shot. Buzzkill is basically fires buzzsaw blades, but they rebound off stuff, into stuff, back at you, into the sky.
Perfect.
Which means, those tricky things we had an embedded enemy at the back, you can now bounce around the environment and do trick shots, because these things won't break until they fly off the screen, basically, or kill you, which happens. And it's great because they're only just controllable, but if you pull that off, it adds a whole new dimension in a way of interpreting these big sort of Rubik Cube battles you've got on the go. And the drop shot just levitates an explosive drill bit across the courtyard, which you can, with a laser point to the ground for targeting, which you can just drop on anything you want. It's not easy to use. It is really fast and fiddly. But again, it's one of those things where at the start of a fight, not that useful, but if you can find your way of cutting a path through that arena to the right point, to the right target, and make the time to set up your shot and execute it, it can solve one of your biggest problems in one hit.
Fantastic. I love the idea of that someone here is sat looking at power tools, trying to think of ways. How can we make this a gun?
How do I weaponise that, and what's the best way of doing it?
Yeah, Gears of War 5 sandpaper gun.
Oh, Rod Ferguson must have such a big shed. Yeah. And then also there's a weather system as well, which is, again, seems like a visual gimmick, and it looks beautiful. It absolutely does. But then you can get these ripping crosswinds in outdoor environments that just change everything, because debris flies across. You can shoot out crap that'll fly across and wipe out guys on its own. Bodies hurtle past your head. You try and use the buzzsaw blades in that, and then you're
Risky.
and grenades horrible as well. And these tracking lightning bolts and stuff that just forces your movement in a different way. Like I say, it's all, there's a lot of new dynamic kind of sort of ambient changes, but it's all built around like the core of what they know makes Gears great.
Cool. And so obviously, like the sort of, there's a tonal shift there in terms of the characters and the way it's presented and stuff. How does it hold up in terms of the character design and story
really
and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there's a massive tonal change now because it's 25 years after the original trilogy ended. So you're playing a new set of guys, the main one being the estranged son of Marcus Phoenix. These guys have never known war. They've lived in a relatively happy world their entire lives. I mean, the COG, they're still they're still kind of fascists. So there's, but there's no locust, there's no immediate threat. But there's a bunch of these guys called the Outsiders who live outside the official COG settlements and are kind of seen as, ne'er-do-wells as a result of that because they don't want to be involved. But they live a pretty happy rural life, so it's just this really upbeat bunch of friends, effectively.
Upbeat is a word that's never ever been used in a Gears of War.
It's always like just grizzled men of war, shaped in war and forged by more war, and also war.
Cities being sunk by worms.
Giant worms.
Yeah.
See, that's the great thing about this, because you've got a bunch of characters who are allowed to have fun now. And Marcus does come back. He's like an NPC, but he's hilarious now because he's written exactly the same. But because he's now the odd one out and he's not got this bunch of similarly grim bastards backing him up, it's just like, oh, shut up, Dad, stop moaning. It's really, really funny.
That's perfect.
It's genuinely laugh out loud funny all the way through.
Okay.
And it's the kind of game that it's quietly aware of the cliches the series plays with as well. So it's the kind of game that knows sinking cities with a giant worm is the funniest line in the series.
Yeah.
And it's never ironic with it, but there's always a sense that it's in on the joke,
That's what I think. That's maybe what was best about that, is it was delivered with such passion.
Oh,
no irony at all.
No, none whatsoever. Whereas this is like, you get like the ongoing running jokes about kind of JD constantly saying, "Oh, it looks like we're clear," and it's like, just stop saying that, because what version of "we're in the clear" are we using now? And like, oh, I hate giant doors; they're getting really unpleasant. It's just it's aware of its gamey tropes, but it never makes it fourth wall breaking either. It's just really good.
Sounds great. On a more sort of mechanical level, then we've got multiplayer and a Horde mode. Did you get much chance to have a look at those?
Yes, caveat, we've not had a chance to play these in proper live circumstances yet because it's pre-release and there's not many people online. Did play a lot of it at the Coalition studio earlier in the month though, and it's all pretty damn good actually. There's a few new modes for multiplayer. There's one called Escalation, which is like the serious mode, where again it's obviously all team based, but after every round I think it's the losing team gets to place a power weapon somewhere in the arena in one of a few designated places, which immediately balances out, makes sure that there's a penalty for winning, there's a buff for losing, and then obviously there's the race to those things as well, and whether you want to race to them, do you want to guard them and use them as bait, do you want to try and make an early rush and just pound the other guys back with it? It's a constant knife edge, and that's really good. There's one called Dodgeball, which unfortunately does not involve the ball or dodging, but it's based on dodgeball rules.
What?
It's based on dodgeball rules, where in dodgeball, if obviously every time a member of your team gets knocked out, if someone manages to score not a kill in dodgeball, obviously, but manage to score a hit, then you can bring someone back.
Okay.
And it works like that. So it's just built around clutch saves and like really tight last man standing tension, where you can get down to like 4-on-1. The last guy can bring the entire team back and just turn the tide. So that's really exciting. And there is just a big dumb fun mode as well, called Arms Race. It's kind of like gun game in COD, where you start out with the biggest power weapon in the game. Everyone has it. Everyone's got a boom shot. It's messy. And then every time your team scores 3 kills, I think, everyone on the map downgrades to the next weapon down, without warning. Okay. Often while you're aiming and about to fire a shot off. So you can be you can have just standard heavy gun ready to go, and then suddenly find a torque bow in your hand, and that just changes everything. And then it whittles down to the point where everyone's running around with bolt-op pistols trying to score headshots.
Amazing.
And there's no real strategy, or it's never going to be an esport, but it's just when you want to let off steam, it's just brilliant fun. And the new Horde 3.0 is great because that it kind of formalises what Horde was really about, in that it was always about finding the right point in the map, looking at the environmental advantages and just holding stuff off. But now it formalises that by giving you this thing called the Fabricator, which actually appears in the campaign a few times as well. It's this big magic box of stuff that can spawn. So you can just create barriers and turret guns and electroshock Tesla coils and stuff, which the start of every wave, you get about 30 seconds to set up a kind of perimeter battlefield. So there's a big tower defense,
Awesome.
sort of semi-Mowbray vibe to it as well. But you only get the credits to powering that by killing enemies. But then you've only got a limited time to go and hoover that up for the battlefield and then put it in and put stuff back out. But to make that work better, you've got classes. So there's a guy called the Scout who can get double points for currency. So you want to prioritize him collecting stuff. You can snipe. You can have designated snipers who get ammo buffs. Soldiers who get frontline buffs. And you never lock to a certain class. You can fight anyway once you've got it. But you want to make sure you've got a decent spread of those sort of perks to kind of keep going, because there's so little time to work with.
Awesome. I mean, it sounds like a generous package full of
It really is.
new ideas.
Yeah, and it seems like, especially on the multiplayer side, it seems very much wants to have something for everyone as well, whether you're super hardcore or just starting, really.
Awesome. So we've got classic gears, lots of good new ideas,
Yep.
compelling story and decent characters.
Yeah.
Let's give it a score.
It is going to get a 4 out of 5. So close to a 4.5. It's almost about to explode into like absolute excellence. As it is, it's just brilliant.
Fantastic stuff. Thanks very much, Dave. Gears of War 4 comes to Xbox One and PC on the 11th of October, and you can read the full review on site. But until then, please keep it GamesRadar for more news, reviews, previews, and features.